We've been working on some seriously cool gaming tech with Sony, and I couldn't think of a better person to walk us through it than my good friend, Mark Cerny.
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. We've heard multiple rumours and we've seen many leaks over the past few months, but now we're starting to get a clearer picture of what Sony and AMD are actually building together, and it's shaping up to be something pretty incredible. Both Mark Cerny, the genius behind the PlayStation 5's architecture, and Jack Huynh, AMD's Senior Vice President of Computing and Graphics, recently sat down in a new video to talk about their next big collaboration. The project is called Project Amethyst, and while they never directly say the words PlayStation 6, it's pretty obvious that's exactly what they're talking about. So some people may be asking, what's the big deal? Well, the next generation of PlayStation isn't just about faster loading times or prettier graphics. It's about completely rethinking how the console processes light, data and performance at its very core. One of the biggest upgrades coming with AMD's new RDNA 5 architecture is something called Radiance Cores. These are dedicated hardware units built specifically for ray tracing, or more accurately, path tracing. If you've ever wondered why games look more real with ray tracing, it's because that technology simulates how light actually moves and bounces in the real world. But until now, it's been incredibly demanding on the hardware. Currently on the PlayStation 5, most of that heavy lifting is done by shader cores. They weren't designed specifically for this, which means a lot of processing power gets tied up just trying to make reflections or shadows look more realistic. Radiance Cores changes that completely. They take over most of the complex part of the process, something called ray traversal, and they handle it directly. That means the CPU and the GPU are no longer bogged down with those calculations. Instead, the CPU and GPU can now focus on what they do best, and that is managing game logic, geometry, shading, and lighting. The result is a smoother, faster, and more efficient rendering pipeline. Imagine worlds that feel more alive, lighting that reacts naturally to every single movement, and visuals that look less like simulation and more like a window into another reality. But that's not all. Some tech insiders, including Moore's Law is Dead, claim that the PlayStation 6's ray tracing performance could rival NVIDIA's RTX 5090, a graphics card that is expected to be one of the most powerful in the world. Now, if that turns out to be true, we could be looking at console visuals that match or even surpass top-tier gaming PCs, and unbelievably affordable pricing on console when compared to the same equivalent PC build. But of course, all of this in terms of performance and comparisons versus other GPUs is speculation, because we don't physically know what those comparisons look like on actual games. So that is something still to be determined, but it sounds really promising from a PlayStation 6 perspective. Another major leap forward is something called universal compression. Think of it as a new way to manage data so the GPU doesn't get overwhelmed. Every game sends tons of information, textures, geometry, effects, back and forth to the memory. Normally that's a huge drain on the bandwidth, but universal compression changes that. It automatically scans every piece of data being sent to the GPU, compresses it whenever possible, and only delivers what's absolutely necessary. That means less wasted bandwidth and more room for performance where it really counts, which is in your frame rate, texture detail, and overall smoothness. Jack Huynh described it best. He says it's a system that looks at every piece of data, not just textures, and then it compresses it when it can. Only the essential bytes actually go through, and that's a real big deal, because when you combine Radiance Cores with universal compression, you're not just getting more power, you're getting smarter power. The console will use its resources more efficiently, letting developers push for higher resolutions and richer details without hitting a wall. It's AMD's answer to NVIDIA's neural texture compression, but built to work seamlessly inside the PlayStation 6's hardware ecosystem. Now, Mark Cerny isn't one to throw around hype without reason. He's been the quiet architect behind PlayStation's most ambitious leaps in hardware, from the PlayStation 4's focus on simplicity to the PlayStation 5's speed-first design. In this new discussion, he made it clear he's excited about where AMD's next-gen features are heading, and even more excited about bringing them to what he calls a future console in a few years' time. That future console is of course the PlayStation 6, and if the timelines are accurate, we could see it launch around 2027 or 2028, right on track with the usual console cycle. Now, rumors suggest Sony isn't just building another home console, they're also working on a handheld companion device. Imagine being able to play next generation PlayStation games anywhere without losing quality or performance. It's clear Sony wants to expand the PlayStation ecosystem, not just with better specs, but with flexibility and new ways to experience their worlds. So what does all this mean for us gamers? It means that the PlayStation 6 isn't just a small step forward, it's a foundation for how the next decade of gaming will look and feel. We're talking about technology that could finally make full path traced worlds a standard feature, not just a tech demo. We're talking about consoles that manage data so efficiently you'll see better visuals without sacrificing the performance. And we're also talking about system designed hand in hand by two industry giants, that is Sony and AMD, who've clearly learned from every generation before this one. The PlayStation 6 may still be 2 or 3 years away, but one thing's for sure, it's not just going to be faster, it's going to be smarter, brighter, and more capable than anything we've seen in console gaming before. And that leads to one final question. If this is what the future of console gaming looks like for PlayStation, are you interested? Are you excited? For me, bring it on. I cannot wait. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys, and let's move on, because if you like Final Fantasy games and you like to collect games, then you're in for a real treat. It looks like Square Enix just dropped something that's going to make Final Fantasy fans really happy. The company has announced a physical double pack for the PlayStation 5 that includes both Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now the bundle, get this, the bundle costs just $59.99 in the US and in the UK. Now let's put that in perspective. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, now check this, the morning of this video, that game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, just one game, currently sells for $69.99 digitally on the PlayStation Store. So with this double pack bundle, you're getting both games for less than one single game. That's a solid deal, especially if you prefer owning physical copies. Now this release isn't just a random bundle, it's a strategic move from Square Enix because it comes just 1 month before Final Fantasy VII Remake lands on Nintendo Switch 2 and the Xbox Series X and S on January the 22nd. It's clear Square Enix wants to keep the PlayStation audience engaged while also expanding to other platforms. And speaking of future plans, the team is already working hard on Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. Despite the series going multi-platform, director Naoki Hamaguchi reassured fans that it won't affect development. In fact, he said Part 3 is already shaping up quite nicely and that Rebirth is performing well on both PlayStation 5 and PC, which is encouraging news considering there were concerns early on about how well Rebirth would sell, but it looks like the game's doing absolutely fine. For longtime fans of the franchise, it's exciting to see this iconic story being built piece by piece with the kind of care and attention that it thoroughly deserves. And if you're someone who's been waiting for the perfect time to jump into the remake saga, the double pack might be your best chance yet. The only thing stopping me personally with this is that when Part 3 comes out, there's probably going to be a triple pack with all 3 games. So me, personally, I will just wait until that comes out. But let me know if you're planning on picking up the double pack Final Fantasy games. Now, Ghosts of Yotei is stealing a lot of the headlines around the world as it climbs to the #1 spot in many countries. The highly anticipated sequel to Ghosts of Tsushima has made a massive debut. According to Famitsu's latest software charts, the PlayStation 5 exclusive shot straight to #1 in Japan, selling over 120,000 physical copies right out of the gate. And remember, those are only physical sales. If we factor in digital purchases, which are not tracked in that data, the real number could easily be double or treble that. For comparison, hitting 100,000 physical sales in Japan these days is not easy. Unless you're Nintendo or a big franchise like Dragon Quest or Monster Hunter, it's quite rare. So for Ghosts of Yotei to pull off that on PlayStation in a region where Sony has sometimes struggled, that's really seriously impressive. Of course, it's following in the footsteps of Ghosts of Tsushima, which was a huge hit back in 2020. That game broke records, becoming the best first-party PlayStation 4 launch in Japan, and eventually sold over 1 million copies there. Tsushima's physical launch numbers were around 220,000, which was significantly higher, but remember, That was during the global pandemic when digital sales weren't nearly as dominant as they are today. In today's market, 120,000 boxed copies is a big win. And when you stack that up against other recent releases, such as the Assassin's Creed Shadows game, which only managed 17,000 physical copies in Japan on the PlayStation 5, it really shows just how strong the Ghost series brand has become. It's clear that Japanese players have a special connection with this series. Maybe it's the setting, maybe it's the historical themes, or the cinematic storytelling that hits close to home. Whatever it is, Ghost of Yotei seems to have struck a chord once again, and honestly, it raises an interesting question. Could this be Sony's next major flagship series in Japan? Much like how Spider-Man dominates mainly in the West. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. So the big day is here for Battlefield 6 as it launches worldwide today. And if you've been following the franchise or the gaming community in general, you might have noticed people talking about something. And it's a little bit controversial, I would say. It's about the bonus XP. Specifically, bonus XP for PlayStation Plus players. During the Battlefield 6 open beta, players noticed something interesting. PlayStation users were receiving exclusive rewards, things other platforms didn't get. That alone was enough to raise a few eyebrows. It hinted that Electronic Arts, the publisher behind the Battlefield series, had struck a marketing deal with Cerny. At first, it was just speculation, but fast forward to the last few weeks and up to the game's full release, it looks like Cerny has not only secured the marketing deal, but that partnership runs deeper than people thought. When you boot up Battlefield 6 on PlayStation 5, you'll find a section called XP Boosters, and here's where the big discovery was made. If you're playing with friends who also have active PlayStation Plus subscriptions, your squad earns 15% XP bonus per match, which sounds great, right? Well, only if you're on PlayStation, because if your team includes players from other platforms like Xbox or PC, that bonus disappears. Even if you're on a PlayStation 5, even if you pay for PlayStation Plus, it doesn't apply unless your whole squad is made up of PlayStation players, and that's where some people's frustrations begin. For some gamers, it's not really about the XP itself. 15% might not actually sound like much, but it's the principle of the thing. Why should one platform get an advantage, even a small one, just because of a marketing deal? Shouldn't skill and teamwork be what really matters in a competitive multiplayer game? This kind of exclusive bonus tends to stir up debates, certainly within the gaming communities. We've seen it before, right? When platform exclusive content or rewards pop up, it often leaves players on the other side feeling left out. But let's be honest, it doesn't really happen much to PlayStation players because Sony does a lot of marketing deals. Now, Battlefield 6 doesn't seem to have locked away any actual gameplay content, well, at least not yet. That's been reported. This XP boost still creates a sense of imbalance amongst some players that find it hard to ignore, especially if you game on other platforms, not PlayStation. From a business perspective, it's 100% understandable. Sony and EA both benefit. PlayStation gets an incentive for players to stay on the platform and continue using PlayStation Plus subscriptions, and EA gains marketing power and visibility. But from a community perspective, does it divide the player base? Maybe, perhaps. It's never a good look for a game that's meant to bring people together in massive cross-platform battles. So do these types of marketing deals enhance the experience? Or do they just create another wall between gamers who should be fighting with each other, not against each other? On the bright side, at least, this bonus doesn't seem to lock away any weapons, maps, or cosmetics. Everyone still has access to the same core content. In the meantime, EA has rolled out a massive day one update for Battlefield 6, featuring over 200 fixes and improvements. That's a pretty big patch, and it shows they're listening to feedback, at least on the technical side of things. Well, we'll finally get to see this game in action for ourselves later today. I'll be diving into the multiplayer section to start with tonight around 6:30 UK time for anyone who wants to take a look, anyone who wants to hang out. I'll be on for a couple of hours and then maybe take a look at the single player Battlefield 6 game over the weekend or so. Anyway, let's move on. So finally, there's been a pretty interesting update to the PlayStation Store itself. For a while now, players could leave star ratings for games from 1 to 5, but that was it. Now, Sony's taking things a step further. The company has rolled out a new feature that lets users write full-length reviews for games that they own. That means you can now share your thoughts, experiences, and critiques directly on the PlayStation Store, not just a quick rating. The update was first spotted by Push Square, and here's how it works. You'll need to log in through a web browser version of the PlayStation Store, not the console itself, and it's because mainly down to writing paragraphs using the controller, which is going to be an absolute nightmare. So log in via a web browser. Once you're logged in, go to the game that you already own, scroll down to where you would normally leave a rating and hit continue. You'll then be able to add a title, write up your review of up to 4,000 characters long, and even include a spoiler tag if needed. It's a smart addition, and it's something fans have been asking for quite some time. And if this sounds familiar, it's because it's a lot like what Steam does on PC. Players there have been long able to leave detailed feedback, and Sony clearly wants to bring that kind of community spirit, that kind of community-driven interaction to PlayStation. Of course, it raises questions too, because will this also open the door to review bombing like we've seen on other platforms? Games like Helldivers 2 that have been hit by review bombing in the past when frustrated players flood a game's review section with negative posts. It'll be interesting to see how Sony manages that going forward. But overall, the move is a big step towards making the PlayStation ecosystem feel more open, more social, and more connected. Guys, the bigger picture here in the context of the video is when you look at all these stories together, it's clear the PlayStation world is evolving, right? We've got Sony's partnership with AMD, developing the next generation of smart console technology for the PlayStation 6, Square Enix keeping one of the most beloved JRPG sagas still alive and thriving with a double pack physical edition for PlayStation, Ghost of Yotei proving that high quality and cost-controlled games, story-driven exclusives, they still have a serious pulling power. And Sony is listening to its community finally, with changes like giving players more ways to interact and share their opinions with the new PlayStation Store update. So what do you guys think? Are you planning to grab that Final Fantasy double pack? Did Ghost of Yotei's success surprise you? And will you be leaving your own reviews on the PlayStation Store? Either way, one thing is for sure, it's a great time to be playing and building your library of games right now on PlayStation. Hope you enjoyed the video today. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. As always, if I don't catch you on the Battlefield stream tonight, I'll catch you on the next video.